Hi, my name is Travis Kern. This is my final project, final PowerPoint project for Microbiology 202 lecture. The topic I chose was the flora of the human body, how microorganisms help you digest. This is just a picture, just kind of a general idea of what this presentation is going to be talking about. All of the different kinds of life, bacteria, all the fungi, all of the different kinds of life that exist in your gut, in your the flora, the microbiota. All these names refer to all the different kinds of bacteria, all the different kinds of microorganisms that live mostly in your large intestines, but also in your small intestines, your stomach, some in your esophagus, throughout your entire GI. The picture on the left just illustrates that there are harmful and there are beneficial bacteria. Um, some of the harmful bacteria cause sicknesses that we associate, um, especially in hospital settings like E. coli and C. diff, Clostridium difficile. So these are bacteria that are prevalent. They do exist in your intestines, but under ideal circumstances, ideal kind of situations in your intestines, they don't proliferate to the degree where they cause any adverse effects to you. But when like you can have too many of the bacteria in your intestines wiped out by a strong antibiotic, and it can create an environment for something like a bacteria like Clostridium difficile to proliferate, and then it can cause serious illness, serious dehydration, severe um, diarrhea, and it's also very easily transmissible. But aside from that, there are good bacteria that you want in your gut, and that image just illustrates that. The human gut. Um, the human gut contains different types of life, including bacteria, archaea, fungi, yeasts, and viruses. This life exists throughout the lower GI and the upper GI to a lesser extent, and assists with a variety of bodily functions like the immune response, pH balance within the body, maintenance of the mucosa, digestion, and more. Understanding of the microbiome within the gut goes back to the 17th century. First use of the microbiota to describe microorganisms in the gut was in the early 1900s. As I was looking through different like reference material, I saw a lot of names for the bacteria, the life in our gut, in our intestines, and it seems like microbiota is the more accepted like scientific name for how to refer to it. The history of the microbiota. Early humans believed there was a link between digestion and emotion. Dairy products have been used as a remedy for GI problems since the time of the ancient Greeks. I find that interesting because we still look to like, Greek yogurt um, as as something that you should take if you're trying to improve your GI health. So before anybody was able to observe the bacteria in yogurt in dairy products, we just through trial and error landed on eating eating this dairy product, eating these what we didn't know was bacteria does end up helping your GI. I find it interesting. Between the 19th and 20th century, opinions on the GI and the mind shifted from believing the GI influenced the mind to the opposite interaction, so to thinking that the mind influences the GI. Um, just always developing understanding of the human body. What we know as the current human microbiome can be traced as far back as Antony van Leeuwenhoek, the first scientist to observe and describe microbial life. So when he was making discoveries about all of this microbial life on our body and in our body, he noticed and realized, wow, there's a lot of life. There's a lot of little things swimming around in our intestines. Recent research has shown a relationship between our bacteria and our gut and the central nervous system, leading to a so-called gut-brain axis. So our understanding of all of this life, all of this really complicated symbiotic relationship that we have with all the bacteria, all the life in our gut is still developing. It's just I'm sure our understanding will continue to develop, and I don't know if we'll fully fully understand it. Fecal transplants have been used in China since the 5th century AD to affect the microbiota in the gut, which I find interesting. Um, because science was much more trial and error pre-microscope. So what trial, what error led to that discovery? Microbial life inside of us all. The human microbiota is composed of not only bacteria, possibly composed of over 35,000 bacterial species, but also fungi, archaea, viruses, and protozoa. The healthy gut microbiota is predominantly constituted around 90% by these two bacteriophytes, the Firmicutes and the Bacteroides. Um, what makes up the microbiota in the gut changes substantially as the GI is observed throughout the digestive tract. From the esophagus to the stomach, the biodiversity of the microbiota grows 12-fold. So there's a lot more as you get further into like later the later portions of the GI. You will find a wider diversity of bacterial life and just microbiotic life. The large intestine harbors by far the greatest microbial community, dominated mostly by the anaerobic bacteria. The large intestine constitutes over 79% of all of the microbes found in the gut flora. And every person's gut is unique, consisting of collectively more than 100 trillion microorganisms. The gut microbiota in infancy can appear haphazard as it's developing, as this system is coming together and all of this life is finding some kind of equilibrium, but it can seem haphazard during infancy when we're really young and we'll get into it later, but the diet that you get is really important for that phase of our gut development. But it resembles an adult gut by around the age of 3. That's when the types of life in our intestines, in our GI, it resembles something similar to what an adult GI would look like. These are just some pictures of the Firmicutes and the Bacteroides. These are just some examples of bacilli. Just Bacteroides include bacteria like bacteroids, Prevotella, and Porphyromonas. Firmicutes include bacteria like Clostridium, Lactobacillus, and Ruminococcus. Factors affecting the microbiome. The gut microbiota is shaped early in life during infancy, being influenced by factors such as the gestational date, type of delivery, methods of early feeding, and the weaning period. So, method of delivery refers to either a vaginal birth or C-section. The diversity of the microbiota develops until it becomes stable as the adult microbiota, composed mainly by the Firmicutes, Bacteroides, and Actinobacteria. In the geriatric population, the composition of the microbiota is affected by changes in digestion and nutrient absorption, along with a weakened immune system. So as you age, there's just a lot of changes that happen with your GI, and the life, the ecosystem that you have inside of you kind of changes as you age. More factors. Antibiotics, especially broad-spectrum antibiotics, can greatly modify the gut. There is evidence emerging that indicates the gut microbiota begins development in utero. So I saw some evidence or some studies citing evidence that the flora of your gut starts to develop in utero or during infancy. The adult gut is most positively influenced by a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and fibers. Get into more of that later. Time of the year also plays a role in the composition of the flora of the gut. This could likely reflect dietary patterns associated with different seasons, especially in rural parts of the world. Regional diets like seaweed also contribute to overall life in the flora. These are just some conditions that are heavily affected and influenced by the flora of your gut. Irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disorder. They can affect allergies. It can affect your BMI and cause obesity. Can also play a role in developing diabetes. This is just like a wheel of different factors that can contribute to inflammatory bowel disease, just to illustrate that the gut microbiota is possibly just as important as a lot of the other influences that can cause disorders and diseases. The functions of the microbiome. The majority of gut bacteria are non-pathogenic, working in symbiosis with the body's enterocytes, and enterocytes are just the cells that make up the intestines. The bacteria in the gut aid with nutrient metabolism by breaking down nutrients to forms that are easier for the enterocytes to absorb. Gut bacteria also has influenced the evolution of the human immune system, resulting in a relationship between immune cells and the healthy gut bacteria, reducing growth of pathogenic organisms. I thought was interesting. Bacteria also convert undigested carbohydrates and indigestible oligosaccharides to other forms that are useful for the body, like the short chain fatty acid butyrate, which can help prevent buildup of toxic byproducts resulting from cell function. So some of the bacteria in your gut will metabolize oligosaccharides, which we ingest in a healthy diet, but our body can't do anything with. But they do. That does provide fuel for the healthy bacteria that you want in your GI, and that converts it into this butyrate, which just helps overall. It's a symbiosis. It's a symbiotic relationship. The gut bacteria aid in synthesis of vitamin K and many components of vitamin B. Another U, how to grow a healthy gut. So the gut biome begins to grow early, possibly in utero. The early infant diet is very important to the development of the bacteria in the GI. Breast milk provides nutrients for selective bacteria, creating an environment advantageous for healthy bacteria to begin growing in the intestines. So when I was seeing that, they were comparing infants' diets consisting of breast milk versus formula, and just a lot of the early steps of creating a healthy gut, a healthy microbiota. You're missing a lot of those natural biological components when an infant is feeding only on formula. And there are reasons why some infants will need to be on formula, but just as I guess as a comparison that was being made, breast milk is much healthier for an infant developing that GI. As an adult, diets rich in fruits, vegetables, and fiber provide the oligosaccharides that are favorable bacteria in the gut need to grow, like I mentioned earlier. I wanted to include this just because I didn't really understand it that well. Probiotics and prebiotics. To distinguish the difference between pro and prebiotics, you can remember that prebiotics provide the food for the healthy bacteria in the gut, and probiotics are the actual bacteria that you're trying to introduce into your microbiota, into your intestines. Probiotics and prebiotics used together are referred to as symbiotics, and I was wondering if the acid content of the stomach would allow for if you're eating yogurt, for example, just a probiotic, something we know is a probiotic. It's got lactobacillus. It's got a few of the bacteria that we want in our intestines to help with all of these functions. Would it survive the acidity of the stomach? And apparently it does. A lot of bacteria will survive the acidity. The study that I looked at was using several samples of different types of bacteria that you would find in the typical flora of your gut, and they were introducing them into an acidic solution at around 2 pH, which is supposed to be similar to gastric acid. So a lot of them do survive. So they will actually make it through your stomach acid, through your small intestines, into your large intestines, and it can proliferate. My reference page, and thank you very much.